Well, hello again, everyone. Would like to welcome you today to our Quality Management and Localization Certification webinar. Hopefully, we won't have any technical issues today as we did last week. And for those of you who planned to join us last week, I appreciate your time today. My name is Chris Wiegand. I work for the Localization Institute and am the organizer of today's session. Also joining us today is Razeb Chowdhury from Taos and Willem Stoller, the principal instructor for the program. Before we start, I have some information that I'd like to share with you in case you have not used GoToWebinar before. On one side of your screen, you will see a red arrow or the control panel. You would want to click on the red arrow to open the control panel if you would need to change your audio mode at all or if you have a question during the webinar. Otherwise, it's good to have the control panel minimized by clicking the red arrow so you can see the presenter screen. By default of GoToWebinar, everyone in the audience will be muted during the session. Questions about this program are very welcome. We will have time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that you may have. In your control panel is a question pane, which is where you would type any questions that you have and hit send. Those questions go directly to me, so we don't have to interrupt the webinar. For the best audio and video quality, please close any other programs that you may be using and remove any handheld devices which can interfere with the audio quality of the webinar. At this point, I would like to turn the session over to our first presenter, Willem Stoller, who is the lead instructor for the program. There will be a couple second delay while we wait for his monitor to show up on your screen. There we go. Thank you, Willem.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. At least good morning for those who are on the West Coast like me. In the next 15-20 minutes, I will go into a fair amount of detail explaining the Quality Management in Translation or Localization program. As you probably know, this is a joint effort of the Localization Institute and Taos. A little bit about myself. I have been in the industry now for about 22 years and worked on the buyer side, the vendor side, the tools provider side, and also many years as an independent consultant to the industry. I'm also heavily involved with project management and a long-time member of the Project Management Institute and on the board of the local chapter here. I taught software localization and localization tools at the Monterey Institute for a couple of years. And I have, over the last couple of years, together with the Localization Institute, developed a certification program for localization project managers. The objectives of the Localization Quality Management Certification Program are as follows. First of all, obviously, you will gain a deeper understanding of the issues related to managing translation quality. You will see how the different quality management standards can contribute to managing translation quality. And then we will talk about how the dynamic quality framework from Taos will fit within the context of these different quality management models. This program, it has both an online and a classroom component, and especially during the classroom component you will have an opportunity to get hands-on experience with the dynamic quality framework and the tools developed as part of the quality framework through the Taos labs. And I hope once you complete this program, you will be able to determine how you can use yourself the dynamic quality framework in your own organization to evaluate translation quality. Now, the target audience are any translation service provider managers, quality managers, and lead translators, and the same on the buyer side. But also any other translation professionals who are interested in translation quality, either using machine translation or human translation or a combination of both. And although Taos Labs is accessible mainly to Taos members, for this program you will get access to the Taos Labs, and you are not required to be a Taos member to participate in this localization quality management certification program. Let's look at the agenda in a little bit more depth. Like I mentioned, there will be a self-study which will be offered using a cloud-based learning management system. That self-study will focus on the quality management standards out there which are relevant to translation, and an overview of the dynamic quality framework, and then end with experience with the dynamic quality framework. I have been interviewing a number of companies who are using the dynamic quality framework and using their feedback as a case study, and provide that detail to you through this self-study. Then the classroom will consist on hands-on with DQF for probably 2 hours or so, and then a certification test of about an hour to complete the program. Again, the certification test will be taken using the online learning system. So you would need a laptop, to bring a laptop along, both for the hands-on experience with the dynamic quality framework and certification test. The first time that this will be given will be early October, and Chris can provide more details. Now let's step through the agenda for the self-study, starting out with an introduction, where we really start looking at what is quality in translation. And we have here the definition as it is provided in the ASTM standard guide, which in turn is derived from the ISO 9001-2008 definition of quality. And it is really, quality is defined as the degree to which the characteristics of a translation fulfill the requirements of the agreed upon specifications. Now it's clear here you need to get an understanding of both the characteristics of the translation, which are relevant here, and what are the specifications, the requirements. The requirements, as we will see in this program, depend of course on the domain covered, the content type, and communication channel. Content types are things like a web page, a marketing document, a technical manual, etc. Characteristics of a translation are often described in a somewhat indirect way by listing all the types of errors as we find in the weighted error typology, such as the Lisa scoring or the J2450. Now the reality is that often quality is of course defined in far less precise terms. I have seen examples, very common examples, where there is only one single approach in the company independent of the content type or communication channel. So it's a one size fits all. Or even less, there is simply a statement that the translation needs to comply with the terminology and style guides. However, often quality is just left to the discretion of the in-country reviewer, which of course makes it very hard to get an upfront an idea of the desired quality. Sometimes you run into situations where the statement will simply be quality, it has to be perfect, it has to be flawless, and of course that's very difficult to deal with because we don't really know what that means. One example I remember a couple of years back with a large company in Silicon Valley was the statement, I know quality when I see it. And that's of course a nice holistic approach, but it's not useful because you obviously can't plan for it, and it's very hard to get meaningful feedback. Now, how can we influence quality? There are a number of ways, obviously, we can influence quality, and let's look at each of them. Of course, the source content quality itself is very important. It's why we see more and more use of tools like acrolinks. Also, the localizability of the source is important because the lack of localizability will impact the degree of quality we can achieve in the translation, and even the localization tools used, the constraints of those localization tools can have an impact in the quality. For example, not being able to deal well with the formatting requirements for inline formatting. Then, of course, the translation requirements itself play a role, like we mentioned before, based on domain, content type, and communication channel. But the most important influencer, of course, on the quality is the translator or the translation engine if you're focusing on machine translation. For the translator, of course, it's the selection of the translators based on, again, on the domain, content type, and communication channel. It's the monitoring of translators and providing them feedback, and in particular the training of translators. And then finally, the processes we use, the type of workflows, how many control steps are there in the workflows, and the quality evaluation tools itself have a big impact on the translation quality. Quality management standards. We will spend a fair amount of time and looking at a number of general standards, in particular the ISO 9001-2008, the PMBOK guide from the Project Management Institute, which provides some detailed standards on project management for localization. At least, let me take that back, the project management guide from the PMI is general, but we have adapted that specifically to localization. Then, of course, it's the capability maturity model, which deals with localization maturity, and also Six Sigma, although lesser used in a translation environment. Then we will continue with a couple of translation-specific standards, in particular the European EN 15038 for localization providers, or translation service providers as the standard calls them, the Canadian version of that, and then finally the ASTM standard guide developed here in the US. Some of these standards have a certification tied to it. Some of these are more guidelines. The EN 15038 is specifically for localization providers or translation service providers, not for buyers, and the same as the Canadian one, while the ASTM guide provides a lot of input guidance for both the buyer and the translator. Having reviewed the different quality management standards, we look closer to the current state of quality management in translation. The reality is that quality planning is often either weak, not documented, or completely missing. I see many examples of quality review without a formal quality evaluation, such as the J2450. So what happens is an independent reviewer will go through the translation and make changes, but there isn't formal feedback, and also there is not a decision of fail or pass, at least not in a formal, more objective manner. Quality assurance is very often missing or only focused on completing all quality processes without asking, are these the right processes? I know many people kind of mix up quality evaluation or quality control and quality assurance. Quality evaluation or quality control is using tools such as the J2450 to measure the quality. Quality assurance is an auditing function where you look at, am I really following all the processes I had set out to do, and are these really the right processes for this particular project? Then finally, we move into where does the dynamic quality framework fit in? When you look at quality management and localization, there are a number of areas involved. Of course, you have defining the quality objectives, which results in itself then selecting quality evaluation techniques and pass and fail criteria. And that is where the dynamic quality framework comes in. Creation of a plan, selecting of the specific workflow and tools for localization. For example, making decisions, are we going to use machine translation and with post-edit, pure human translation, crowdsourcing, the evaluation of the source content quality, etc. Now we have reached the point where we are going to look at DQF itself and the components of DQF. And that will be addressed by Recep from Taos shortly after my presentation. And as I mentioned before, DQF is a great concept, and it is a dynamic concept because there are a large number of companies within the Taos organization who are working on improving the DQF concepts, and in particular the tools and knowledge database tied to DQF. But of course, you also want to see how DQF fits in our real world of translation, and that's why I will present case studies in the online training from Intel, EMC, and Pactera. I would like to hand it over now to Recep, and again, you will be able to ask questions after his presentation about the dynamic quality framework.
Thanks, Willem. Just going to share my screen. This is Razib Chaudhry from TAPS. Hi, everyone. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Great, thanks. So I want to take a few minutes just to give you an overview of the resources that form part of the dynamic quality framework. And along the way, I'll just describe how we came to create the framework itself. We tried to tackle through a collaborative industry initiative one of the most challenging areas in our industry, quality evaluation, quality assurance. And here you see a slide that fills itself, which shows the multiple layers that over the supply chain within the localization space in particular, where we see highlighted quality assurance at each layer, where you have people reviewing other people who are then being reviewed themselves. So we see duplication of review over review over review, which is costly, prone to subjectivity, and doesn't seem to meet the evolution of market needs. In January 2011, we began working with primarily the enterprise members to share best practices and establish, to work together and establish a common framework, pretty much putting this idea of appropriateness at the fore, matching the quality evaluation approaches that we apply, matching those to the content type and purpose of the content. We also aim, as part of the framework, to move the industry towards benchmarking of quality evaluation to raise the credibility of the quality assurance process in the industry. And we think that by working together in this industry collaborative initiative, we'll be able to lower the cost of quality assurance at both buyer and provider. So the project has been going on, as I mentioned, for more than 2.5 years. The governance of the project takes place every 2 months with a user call involving many of the Taos members who have contributed to prioritizing the work, reviewing progress, and so on, keeping us in check. There are 4 5 people at Taos involved in the project, 3 doctors, Dr. Nora Arenberry, Maxine Kaliloff, and Sharon O'Brien, who've been working on different parts of the framework, and Yap, Pandemir, and I, who are providing communication and some project management oversight. There's some development which is outsourced. 3 reports describe the theory behind the framework. This one, which has been available for a long time, published in November 2011, describes the theoretical underpinning of the framework. The second one describes how, by working together, we can advance best practices in machine translation evaluation. And this third report describes how, by bringing the industry together to work on this issue of quality evaluation, we can then in turn also help academia to improve automated metrics in the long run, automated metrics that judge the quality of MT output. In practice, the theory has led to a content profiling feature where you can profile your content along certain parameters, and you're given a set of results, a recommendation on the types of evaluation approaches that seem to suit the profile of your content. The simple idea here is that when you're creating or refining a quality program now, you can lean on a industry shared resource which has been put together by practitioners in the field to help you make a decision that makes it easier for you to build your business case. And because this is an ongoing project, very much bottom up, I would say, we're able to continuously improve the recommendations of different aspects of the resources. So here the last 2 bullets point to different version of a new version of content profiling that we'll be launching in the fall. Once you click recommend models on after content profiling, you get a list of 1 or more evaluation approaches that might be suitable for your purposes. So here you see them listed in alphabetical order. And quite simply, some of them are the linguistic review, like error typology, readability, adequacy, fluency that you might be used to. And others are somehow nascent, at least in terms of the translation or localization space, things like community-based evaluation, customer feedback, usability evaluation. And this is something that's really at the fore of our thinking. We think that quality evaluation should consider customer or user impact more explicitly than it has done up to now. And we're very much working towards sharing best practices on these new approaches, new in the context of the industry. So each article that you might then click through into follows the same structure, starting at the top with a high-level description of why you would use such an approach, and drilling down into ever greater levels of detail. So a description of a different approach, the conditions for success, clicking through into step-by-step process guides, very operational stuff, ability to download reference templates, which have been put together through consultation with Taos members. You can download and just go and use them. So very much the idea here is, again, a central resource, an industry resource, which is continuously improved for defining best practices, again, lending credibility to your decisions, and being improved over time. Very dynamic, in fact. So an outcome of the project is also a number of best practice guidelines, which are then publicly available, what I just described earlier, member resources. And the process here is that members define drafts of best practices. They get reviewed at quality evaluation summits. Then we run public consultations. And then they become best practice guides, which are available to everybody publicly. There are quite a few, as you see on the left-hand menu, already available. And then finally, the third element of the resource is the tools. Here we focus very specifically on different use scenarios around machine translation, and we try to provide a suite, an independent platform for machine translation evaluation, whether you're trying to choose the best engine whether you're doing a productivity test or assessing the actual final linguistic quality of the machine translation output or the post-edited content. And the idea here very much is to embed best practices in terms of evaluations into the tool, to collect comparable data points, going back to this point of benchmarking, to provide a vendor neutral place to conduct evaluation, reducing evaluation costs. And this point I made about the third report, the theory, that we now put into practice. We collect data points on the correlation between what the automated metrics predict and what actually happened with human evaluation. And those data points are fed to researchers who are able to then work on improving their models for automated metrics. So a new version is being worked on right now. We're just about to go into user testing, and that goes live in August. Many of the task members, I think 70 have tried it, 35 are using the tools regularly. So it's become a very useful tool for the membership. So currently we have a consultation that's live. It's on determining best practices for pricing machine translation post-editing. And translation tools are beginning to adopt the different models, error typology, adequacy, fluency that we've put together. And we're now in earnest preparing for the Task Quality Evaluation Summit, which takes place on the 9th of October. We'll share these slides with you after the call. You'll see that there's a link there at the bottom which goes to a survey where we ask people to give their views on what discussions should take place, what best practices we should try to establish at the next Quality Evaluation Summit. So I'd be grateful if you click through and take 3-4 minutes to complete that survey after the call today. And then the Quality Evaluation Summit itself, which is on October 9th, as I say, just after the first face-to-face session of the Localization Institute course that we're now describing. And I think that was it. That was my last slide. Yeah. So I hope that's a useful reference, and very happy to take some questions now.
Great. Thank you, Razeb, and thanks to Willem as well. If you have any questions, I encourage you to use the question pane on your control panel, and those will come to me, and then I can ask our two presenters today. To give you a couple minutes to write your questions, I would like to share some information with you. As far as some key dates go, the online study for this program will begin on September 9th. The registration for the program will close on September 29th, and the live workshop will take place in Santa Clara, California on October 8th from 1:30 till 5:30 p.m. at the Hyatt Regency. And you can find more details about this on the Localization Institute website. Okay, here's our first question. Has the DQF model been implemented in any university translator training program?
We began talking with a couple recently, and in fact, Sharon O'Brien, who is part of the Taos Labs team, also other job is working at Dublin City University as a teacher trainer. So in some organic way, that's already happening, but it's something that we begin to address now. So not in any great detail, any great number yet, but it's something that seems to be on the horizon right now.
Okay, thank you. Someone also asked if we could put the link to registration in the chat box, so I'm working on that right now. Okay, so I just put the link to registration, and you can copy and paste that into a browser, or you can also go to the Localization Institute website, and on our homepage we have a link right to the Quality Management Program, and there is a registration button right on that page. Okay, here's another question. Willem, maybe you would want to take this. It says this course seems to overlap with the Localization Project Management Certification course on October 7 and 8. Is it possible to do both?
Yes, it is possible. We have had this question before. The overlap is really during the certification period of the localization project management course, and it will be possible to take the localization project management certification at a later time so that people can attend also the quality management course.
Okay. We have another question. Any plan to have the certification fully online or in other places? We are certainly going to be talking about where to offer the workshop in 2014. And Willem, do you see this fully online at any point?
In this case, for the quality management, that is definitely possible because the classroom component is really focusing on the hands-on with the Taos Lab tools for dynamic quality framework. So that is definitely possible. Since this is the very first time we're giving this quality management uh, program, uh, we like to first uh, get the experience by doing it in the classroom format, and it in this particular case made sense to combine it with a localization world.
Okay. Should you do the localization PM certification before you do the quality management certification?
No, there is no dependency between the two. So, although we talk in the quality um, management program about some of the standards used in localization project management, there is enough coverage there so that you can take them totally separately, and there is no dependency between the two. However, I would recommend that the people who intend to attend the quality management program do have a number of years experience in the localization industry. Uh,
Okay, thank you. Is the localization project management certification the same one that started at Chico?
it is based on the one at Chico, but totally redone. Um, so the material has nothing in common with the material used in the time in Chico.
Will there be a European version of the quality management program?
If you mean by that, will it be provided in Europe as well? Yes. Uh, the nature of the program is such is that there is no real need for adapting it to a particular region. I think the content will be universally usable within the different areas. Um, like the localization project management certification program, we will definitely conduct the quality management program also in Europe.
Okay. How many times a year will we offer this certification? We had initially been talking about 3 times in 2014. Willem, would you concur with that?
Yes.
Okay. I envision a US workshop, a European workshop, and also one offered in Asia. At this point, we haven't finalized anything, but we will certainly send out those details once we have that information.
Yeah, and I noticed there was another question regarding replacing the classroom with online for remote students. And although we had not thought about that in great detail yet, we will definitely put that on the list and consider how we can do that.
Mhm. Because we know that some of you are remote and are not able to come to the in-person workshop. And as far as when we plan to conduct this in Europe, I don't have any dates at this point, but we will certainly put that information out as soon as we have it. Are there any other questions about the program? Doesn't look like any other questions at this point. While we sum up, I just wanted to let you know that In order to register for the program, you just need to go to the Localization Institute website at localizationinstitute.com. And from there, there is more information and there is a registration link. So it's a quick and easy process to register. And after that, you will get a confirmation and more details about the online program starting. We will share the recording of today's session on YouTube, and I will send the link out to everyone who registered for this session today, and the presentation slides will go on to SlideShare. Feel free to contact me if you have any further questions, and I would like to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Have a
Bye bye.
great day. Bye.